those forms that Juan was talking about down since then. And that we have to really understand that actually it's not politically popular to target community members in the way that it was in those years. And that's because of the movement.
And we're going to do a post show. And in that post show, talk to you about what are the specific strategies that you think people have used, the whole theory of abolition and more. Silky Shah, Executive Director of Detention Watch Network, author of the new book just out titled Unbuild Walls, Why Immigrant Justice Needs Abolition. She's speaking tonight at the People's Forum here in New York City, then headed to Texas on her national book tour. That does it for our show. A very happy birthday to Erin Dooley. Democracy Now! Is produced with Mike Burke, Renee Feldstein, Guzder, Sharif and Kadus, Messiah Rhodes, Nermeen Sheikh, Maria Terracena, Tammy Warren, Tarina Nadura, Sam Alcoff, Taymuri Astudio, Rabi Karen, Hani Masood. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez.
The viewpoints expressed in this program are the opinions of the people expressing them and are not necessarily those of Fresh Air Incorporated, its staff, or its board of directors.
Hi, this is Al McFarlane, host of The Conversation with Al McFarlane. You're listening to 98.3 FM, KFAI, Minneapolis. I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. I just love KFAI. I love listening to Amy Goodman, all the stories, all the information, all the analyses, and I'm so pleased and honored to follow her. I think she's doing magnificent public affairs, civic affairs, journalism that's both local and global. We aim to do the same, and hopefully, can be regarded in a light that elevates the importance of civic engagement, community involvement, of liberty and freedom for everyone, everywhere. Well, kudos to Amy Goodman. Kudos to our colleagues here at KFAI. I want to begin by, again, thanking all of you who are joining us, not only on the radio, but those who join us across any of the social media platforms. We're streaming live through YouTube on both the Black Press of America channel and on the Inside News channel. We'd love to have you be a subscriber, member, cost you nothing, get you notification whenever we're live. You go to Inside News YouTube/Inside News MN, and you have a chance there to subscribe, like, and share. We'd love to have your comments as well. And if you have a question or a comment, an angle, an attitude, something that you don't like, drop us a note in the comment section. But not only are we streaming live on YouTube, we're streaming live to LinkedIn, to Twitter, and to Facebook as well. So wherever you are, here on the radio live or on any of the streaming platforms that we're part of, we thank you. Mosey over to the YouTube channel and become a subscriber, a member. I want to begin also inviting you to a week of special programming starting next Monday. The Conversation with Al McFarlane is going to be broadcasting every day here on KFAI, every day except Thursday. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then again Friday, and for the first time ever, Saturday. We're calling this George Floyd Week. And our intention is to call attention to the event, the history, the background, and the solutions that we're bringing to the challenges of community, all of which were exacerbated by what we experienced with the murder of George Floyd. So that's going to be our focus next week. Let people know. We'll be promoting this throughout the week, this week here on KFAI. We want you to be involved, you to be in tune. And the unique thing is that we'll be broadcasting the show every day live from George Floyd Square. It'll be a unique experience. If you want to be part of that, It's an invitation only. We've got room for several people for our live audience. Send us a note. Send it to info@Inside News or Cooper@Inside News, and we'll let you know if we can get you into the program. Well, today we want to begin by talking with our friends over at Stairstep. Alfred Babington Johnson has been here for several days, helping bring attention to another phenomenal event, the first of its kind, being held on Saturday, 25 May. That's Saturday, a week from now, a week from this Saturday. And that event is called Minnesota Soul. Brother Babington, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Al, and it's always a blessing to see you.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you. I enjoy being in your company, and I enjoy lifting up the marvelous work you do in community, as a family, as a leader in community, and the convening that you do. And what you're doing coming up on the 25th is a massive convening event. Impressive undertaking, but no one better to do it than you. Tell us about it, and in the process, invite people to show up and to be part of a powerful experience of community.
Amen. Thank you, Al. And I guess first and foremost, I have to say God is good. God provides opportunity, and then I think intends that we walk into that opportunity in ways that are consistent with his will for our lives and his purpose for all mankind. So we are excited on the 25th of May, as you said, that Saturday of Memorial Day, and during the season of remembering George Floyd and all that happened as a result of his murder. We thank God that we were able to come together with a commitment to community, but with a celebration that is community. When we come together on the 25th of May, Al, it's going to be a good time, you know. I don't know when, but even as I'm talking about this, is it possible that my brother, my colleague, our partner in crime, Billy Steele, might join us in here? Because I want to say something about this legend.
And there he is. For those who are listening on the radio,
there he is.
We're watching each other on video. So, yeah. Billy Steele, brother, good to see you. Welcome to the conversation.
Always good to see you, Al, and my brother Babington.
Hey, man, I want to say he is a legend inside of a legend. You know, Billy, on his own merits, is such an impact player in our community, not just in terms of the creative force that he brings, but the soul that he brings. There's something special about this brother, and we believe that in what we're going to experience on the 25th of May, we're going to have that kind of experience in which we're calling the exhibitors in this session, we're calling them griot. Which is a term that's typically used for those who are storytellers, those who carry forward the narrative of the community in the village. You know, clearly Billy is such a one. You know, his life and his works are that which lift us up. You know, and so in this season, Al, we're gonna have a bunch of folk who recognize that they are griot, that their creative energy is part of the ongoing lift of our community. And just, I'm excited, perhaps you can tell, I'm as excited as I could be about this coming forward. God's doing the work.
Billy, what's the role you're going to play? What are you going to do?
You know what, man? I'm going to play the role that I love to play, and that's music. You know, music underscores our community. In fact, all of our lives are underscored through music. And what they put together with Stairstep Foundation has allowed us to be a part of is absolutely outstanding. I get to work with amazing musicians for the whole day of that Saturday on the 25th of May. And we get to do what we do that God gave us. God gives us all these amazing gifts.
Yeah.
And it's always interesting when I see all these different genres of music come together under one roof to give God glory and praise through the gifts that we have to give him and to give his people. You know, the Bible always talks about how we should love each other. And I can't think of a better way to love each other than let music play, man.
Amen. Let the music play.
Let the music play. It allows us to commingle, man. You know, I tell people growing up in Gary, Indiana, going to the barber shops in Gary, Indiana, where I learned how to grow to be a young man, to be a man. And man, you talking about the music? Man, the music will start playing, and old and young both be bobbing our heads because it connected everybody. It's kind of like hymns. I always call music hymns. But, you know, hymns connect generations of people, and music does that. Stevie Wonder said music is the universal language. I said absolutely. And my travels all across this world to be able to go to India with my brother JD and work on a project there, and actually just hear music in the streets and see how people responded to music. That's what this day is really about.
Yeah.
A lot of things on the table that we talk about that our communities may be suffering through or may be excited about. And music can kind of bridge the gap to have the conversations that we need to have. It softens the soil, the seed may be placed.
Hello.
So I'm really excited, man, to be able to share music. I'm joining Darnell Davis on one of the stages as a band for different groups that'll be performing on that. But then on the other stage, like my family will be there, so the Steels will be there. Monique Blake. I want to name everybody. I know Babington got a
name as many as you can between you and Babington. Let's give everybody some credit.
Exactly. Oh my God, man. Darnell Davis and the Remnant. Oh my goodness, man. The Hearst Experience. L.A. Buckner, Big Homie, Cortland Pickens and Known, Jamesia Bennett. I mean, None Above, Kanisha Garman, y'all. These are people you don't want to miss in a setting like this that doesn't cost you the money to see. I would pay big money to see these.
Al. How can you not love Billy Steele? For so many reasons. But the deal is, in this time that we're living, that is so fractured, so full of tension, so full of animosity, so full of people going to their separate corners. We need to unleash the power of community and in this creative coming together. We're looking for something that'll lift folk. And send them out with a sense of, hey, I'm going to make it better. I'm going to be better. I'm going to make it better. I'm going to connect to my brother. I'm to my sister. We're going to walk together in this space called community. That's not a place of hate. That's not a place of animosity. That's a place of love and mutual accountability, and that's what we are seeking. And Al, let me just say, we're going to be in US Bank Stadium. And we're not talking about being in a corner of the stadium. Right. We're talking about being where the Vikings are.
On
the playing field.
Right.
And working this thing out, Al. I'm excited.
We're also going to have a choir. So if you don't like gospel music, man, I don't know why, because that's the feel-good music of our. It's historically probably one of the more authentic music genres of America, and gospel music and blues. So when you come, you'll get to hear our choir from Fellowship Missionary Baptist Church will join with Greater Friendship Baptist Church, with Spirit and Truth Worship Center Choir, and with New Salem Baptist Church. We're going to all come together with 75 or so choir members, and we're going to sing for about 40 something minutes and just kill it. And the band's going to be, we're going to have a blast.
It's going to be on the top. And let me say this, Al. I'm going to seek out from Billy, because, they have rehearsals. I'm going to seek out for him the dates and the times of those rehearsals. Do not be surprised if you look at the choir and you scan the baritone section, if you don't find your brother singing there, lifting up his voice with the crew.
Babington, did you get my email about the rehearsals?
No, I didn't.
Oh, man, I'm trying to
figure out. You did it with that disappearing ink again?
Listen, Billy, just as you're talking about your worldwide travels, you open up a whole field of questions for me. And I'm going to take a couple of seconds to ask you to walk around your career. Somebody might not know who the Steels are. So talk about who are the Steels. And you mentioned growing up in Indiana. Where you guys have come from is phenomenal, and what you've done, and not only here in Minnesota, but around the planet is phenomenal. So I want to give you some time to stretch out a little bit and letting people know this path that you have been on, and this path that you really are. Billy, what do you think?
Well, I'm the youngest of 6 siblings.
Wow.
And we're originally from Gary, Indiana. Now, as the youngest, JD was born in 1780. But anyways, JD Fred came here first to Minnesota, right? And then we all followed them, right? They used to sing as children. My dad used to take them to open for Mahalia Jackson and a lot of gospel greats, James Cleveland and them back in the day. They would go to Detroit and Chicago regionally in the area. So when we moved here, Gerald came afterwards, of course. Gerald and JD and Fred formed the group, the Steels, the JD Steel Singers, with Ginger Commodore singing them, joining them actually. And they all sang together. Javita and I were on the way. So when Javita and I got here, JD was directing the Rams Majestic Choir at Pilgrim Baptist Church. JD was already making noise. He was singing everywhere, from churches to nightclubs, the old Felties and the Party Train back in the days. I didn't know they was doing all that worldly music. So when I was like, I'm sorry, Mom, I can't be doing all that. I got to be a church now. So I would go to Pilgrim and play every now and then with them. But I wasn't officially part of the JD Steel Singers until they was like, you family, so why you acting? So I said, okay, I guess I'll join them. But I joined Sounds of Blackness first. They got mad at me. So anyways, the Steels have been here singing. They joined forces with Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince, however you want to say his title. And they became these legends, even Gerald with Prayer Home Companion. So my family is very well known throughout the world. And JD and I worked on a lot of creative projects that have taken he and I to places I didn't expect to go with my oldest brother. And that's why I brought up India, because that was the only time anybody in my family's ever been there. And he and I got a chance to go and do, with Rita Mustafi, the Katha dancers, to do a Hindu project in India, which was really different. And of course, me being a church boy, I was asking Rita, I said, Rita, is there some churches around here? And our first rehearsal was next to a Christian fellowship church. I was like, that's hilarious. But we had a blast, and we had a couple of days off. We traveled to Agra to see the Taj Mahal. And to be able to do that with my eldest brother was just priceless. But his creativity has opened so many. I mean, he did the orphanages in Africa. So
Kenya or Uganda? Which one was it?
Kenya.
Kenya, was it Eldoret? Is that the name of the place? Eldoret?
I don't remember the place.
Okay.
I know there's a whole video and stuff that he did to share over there. He was going every year, and it was about 85 children. I think he was working on.
He developed a big choir.
He did a big, and they make their own instruments. So the Steels have been everywhere. I mean, I could go on, and that could take a while. But
let me put you on the spot now. Are you by your keyboard, or is your keyboard in your mind? Let me hear some
keyboard in your mind.
Keyboard in my mind. Right?
He has perfect pitch.
Right. So what you asking me?
Do something improv.
Do something improv.
Yeah.
Okay.
Give people a sample.
He understands each tear you shed.
Yeah.
God understands every burden you bear. Don't worry about what your friends say, y'all. Just know that he's an understanding God.
My. Hallelujah.
That's a mic drop, brother. Thank you so much. Babington, make the invitation, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, Billy mentioned Ginger Commodore. She's going to be there too with MPLS. Listen, it's live and it's happening. The 25th of May. And
while you're talking, there's a video we can show. The people won't be able to see it on the radio, but those who are watching can see it. Can you drop the video on, Cooper? And go ahead, Babington, keep sharing.
May 25th, U.S. Bank Stadium. It's going to be a hopping good time. Everything, as Billy said, from extraordinary quiet. Listen, you want to be there on time. You want to be there right away, because there's not a moment to be lost. There's not a memory to be cast aside. You want to be there May 25th, U.S. Bank Stadium. Al McFarlane's going to be there, I bet you. And you should be too. And it's free to you and to me.
There we go.
And
Brother, thank you so much.
Dance and art.
Awesome.
There's a lot there, y'all. Y'all don't want to miss this. Is beautiful.
Hallelujah.
Well, gentlemen, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Al.
All right, and we'll get another couple of swings at this before Saturday. So
Amen.
Keep it going.
Billy, you can't keep me out of the rehearsal.
Conversation with Al McFarlane. Thank you for being here. I'm going to continue the conversation. We've been focusing of late on a number of world issues, and obviously a pressing issue is the conflict, the combat going on in Gaza, the conflict between Israel and Hamas, and the carnage that has resulted from that carnage in terms of the invasion of Israel by Hamas in earlier in the response to that by the Israeli invasion of Gaza. We want to keep our community in the world sort of attuned to both the issues, the consequences, the cost. And I've got my colleagues, Antonio Rosell and Yoji Senna, here to engage in that conversation. Antonio is here in Twin Cities. Yoji is joining us from Bahia in Brazil. Brothers, gentlemen, good to see you. Welcome, as always, back to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. And Antonio, let me let you set this up, first of all, because we're sort of continuing the conversation that we've been having. I think that we should keep having. It's difficult to talk about this on the one level because people are self-censoring for fear of either intentionally or not intentionally offending one side or the other. But that fear really is not the solution. The solution is to figure out a way to have a conversation. And the whole world needs to move to conversation and move away from munitions and retaliation, from my point of view. So I think we want to have that kind of conversation and invite people to think and to organize and to express themselves whenever and wherever they can in ways that add to the likelihood of solving a problem, not pouring more fire on it. But Antonio, welcome. Let me have you put in context the things we want to cover today on this program.
Thank you very much for the invitation, Al, as always. So we've been having this conversation with your listeners now for several months. As you know, the conflict, this open conflict in Gaza has been taking place now for about 7 months. And there's been a constant military activity against the territory of Gaza, which affects the millions of people who live there. Gaza is a place within the Palestinian territory, neighboring Israel, administered, that whole entire area administered by Israel. Gaza is about the size of St. Paul, and it has 2.3 million people living there, and they've been in a blockade now going back for about more than 10 years, since 2006, actually. So going on almost 20 years now. After the Hamas actions of October 7th, there's been a huge attack that has directly killed about 40,000 civilians, the majority of them women and children. And this has caused, it's not just, it's the killing, the tragedy of the horror of killing children and their mothers and entire families, sometimes 40 people at a time who have come together sheltering in a family home, and they are bombed. There's jet fighters flying above the city, dropping bombs on residential neighborhoods. One of the things that is really important for us as we have this conversation is that our nation funds that. We have been funding that for many years and are funding it now. There's been, just even recently, a $26 billion bill sending additional weapons and additional funding for the Israeli military. And we have a role to play as a nation as well in ending that, because we are facilitating that. Now, as part of that, as people have been seeing this now in the age where social media is much more available, we were talking about the killing of George Floyd just a little bit ago, and in a way, social media helped us to see the tragedy of what people are subject to, Black people are subjected to in the United States, day in and day out. If the social media wasn't there, it would have been harder for people to become aware. And it would have maybe it would not have built to the size that it did as a global phenomenon against police violence. In the same way, today, because of the availability of social media, we are able to see live 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for the last 7 months, tremendously horrible actions against defenseless women, defenseless children, defenseless older people, defenseless men who are just living their life with their families in a place where life is already very hard and being destroyed by an industrial scale slaughter. So that is turning hearts worldwide and in a way, our innate qualities as humans, we have, God is inside all of us, and part of what God is fellowship and brotherhood and solidarity and feeling for the other, right? And so throughout the world, people have kind of, it's like the wool has been removed from their eyes, and they are seeing the terrible nature of these crimes that are being committed. And so the student encampments, which we talked about last week, for example, I mean, that's something that's been going on for months. And actually, students have had campaigns for disinvestment in Israel for many, many years now, because in some way, when we are young, I think our hearts are more pure and we are more clearly able to see injustice. It was students too who were at the forefront of the anti-apartheid protests, 30, 40 years ago, when South Africa was trying to perpetuate that system of terrible discrimination against Black Africans in South Africa. Mm-hmm. Students led the way. Students are leading the way today as well. And so there is, overall, I would say, a huge shift in perception about Israel's actions, the legitimacy, let's say, of what they can do in that territory, and importantly for us as citizens of the United States, the role that we are playing every single day in facilitating this, and our obligation as decent people who believe in God, who love each other, and who want to make a better world, to actually make a difference and change it. So,
I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm here with my co-hosts today, my colleagues Antonio Rosell and Yoji Sena. Antonio is here in Twin Cities. He's among other things, an activist, a peace activist who's done peace missions to Cuba and beyond. He's also an environmentalist and who talks about sustainability and how we organize ourselves in families and communities and personally to be in harmony with the idea of a sustainable, self-sustaining, respectful humanity. And our colleague Yoji Sena joins us from Bahia in Brazil. Yoji is a former Twin Cities resident. We connected when he was here. And Yoji, among other things, said he described in our conversation last week himself as a George Floyd refugee. What do you mean, Yoji? He said, well, I left Twin Cities days after the murder of George Floyd because I was concerned about the escalating level of violence and other things associated with that event, but also the pandemic and systemic things that became more and more clear, structural impediments to freedom and attainment of the values we say we represent. Yoji, I'm gonna let you say what you said. I'm just repeating what I think you told me, and I appreciate what you said, and I appreciate the fact that you had the mind that said, go leave. This is untenable. Yoji, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Al, and greetings to everyone who's listening to this show. Yes, I left Minneapolis after 32 years. I live 2 blocks away from where George Floyd was assassinated by the police. And I, in a certain way, knew many of the players that were involved in that, meaning that I have some acquaintance with George. and also the owners of Cup Food. And as I say, I could see from my window apartment the place where it happened. And after that, we all know that the the neighborhood got took over and by the neighbors, but also by rogue elements. I was also across the street when the fifth precinct got uh, burned, and I am a guardian of a son who needs my continued support. And every night we could hear gunshots, right? And also at that time was the rumors of white supremacists roaming around, and that coupled with the 32 years with many experiences of bad interactions with the police and experience of racism that got exacerbated uh, by the election of the orange person. So I admit, and along with the pandemic, I panicked. And my thought was, if if it is gonna happen that I'm gonna die, I will prefer to die where I was born. And also for a sense of protection of my son, to be in a place uh, that was more embracing. Um, and this is what motivated us to come back here. Even though that here things are not very different as far as police brutality, right? Where I live, what 3 4 days ago, uh, youth being killed by a retaliatory action of the police. Uh, so yeah, Minneapolis, it lives in my heart. I learned a lot of things. I made a lot of friends. I have family in Minneapolis. I have 6 kids that are Minneapolitan. So it is with pain that I left, but at the same time with relief. So that experience, you know, made me realize um, things about the United States that sometimes, for example, this last week, I found myself in a viral Instagram post of a Christian person, one of those Christian influencers. He used a clip experience that I have in the Minneapolis School of Barbering on Lake Street, where I was harassed and instigated by the owner, and that I have the nerve of filming while it was happening, and it's still I suffer abuse for as well support, but mostly it's abuse for my attitude. I was hostigated for being a foreigner, clearly for being a black person, and for being a client, asking for my right as a client. But maybe sometimes be a client and a black person doesn't match in the mind of other people, so the treatment is different. So it is, as I say, sometimes I'm very skeptical and resort to have a cynical attitude about things. And I think as a mechanism of defense, as a tool of coping with it, because I feel that I feel powerless to do anything, but sometimes to be or to attempt to humor on those situations. All the times is plainly rage, you know. So yes, I'm here in Bahia. I'm witnessing still what's going on in the U.S. Right. So, for example, this student protest uh, in solidarity with Gaza reminds me also the student protest that was in the in the University of Minnesota. That I was present in solidarity when Trayvon Martin got killed, and that's all in certain way related. Even that sometimes the geography separate the places, right? For example, I have expressed in the past. I do have Jewish blood. I have Sepharad blood and also Yoruba blood. And I recognize that uh, to my people as a black person, that is the personality that dominates, not the Sepharad. Palestinians and Israelis are equally offenders, are equally racist. But in this case, this disproportionality of the action of Israel, it is enraging. You know, people sometimes don't know. And uh, Palestine and in Gaza, there is a big uh, black population, big African descent population of peregrines that went to Mecca and couldn't return home. And for generations, they have stayed in Palestine and uh, turned or born being Palestinians. Uh, so, and I always been touched by the need and sense of justice by my own experiences as a child, as a teenager, and as a young adult. I lived in Argentina for 11 years, and if you multiply, I don't know, 365 years that there is in a year times 11, I think that at least I slept 200 nights in a police station in
Really?
Buenos Aires. Yeah. And because the Orishas are so strong, I have not been killed by the police in Argentina inside of the police stations because they are world famous for disappearing people. And in this program, we have had the as a guest the blood brother of one of my brothers that life has given me, Jose Acosta Martinez, that was killed by the police in Argentina on the street for coming in defense of other Afro descendants that were being mistreated by the police. So, of course, in this moment, as a descendant of enslaved people, I have to solidarize myself with who are suffering unjustly, regardless that the Palestinians in some moments are racist towards people like me.
Let's go into that. So, what I heard you just say is that some of us believe, and our experience says that those who we view as Palestinians have racist views towards African or Black people on the one hand, but despite that, you feel that there's a larger question about the presence of Black people in Israel or in Gaza that is part of today's conflict. Think about that, and maybe both of you come back and weigh in on that, because Antonio, you drew parallels between experiences of the formerly enslaved Africans in this hemisphere, and with those in South Africa who were suffering under the apartheid colonial and imperial regime of a white supremacist. And how does that tie into, if it does at all, the experience of people of color, of Black, of African, and of Arab people in Gaza, Palestine. One of our comments from Mike V, we'll put that up, said that Palestine becoming recognized by United Nations as a legitimate state is a first step, but getting Palestine to become a member of the African Union would be a massive step, with 55 African states backing them. Talk about Africa and the position of South Africa and Africa in the conflict in Gaza, if there's a relationship there. On the phone this morning, I was talking to an old friend of mine from Liberia, Wilfred Harris, who lives in Brooklyn Park, Brooklyn Center. I invited him to come to the show later, but he reminded me that it was Liberia that cast the final vote that allowed the creation of the state of Israel in 1949, I believe, 47, 48, 49, I don't remember the exact year. And so the question becomes, what is this connection between Africa and the creation of Israel? And what is the connection between Africa and now Africa's standing or speaking to protect Palestinians from what the world is saying is massive retribution that is outsized. And I don't know anybody that is supporting the attack on Israel by Hamas. But I also don't know anybody who is supporting the massive retribution that's cost, I think, over 35,000 or so lives of people in Gaza as a result of this conflict and escalation. Antonio, what do you think?
Well, I think it's very important to highlight the role of South Africa in responding to these actions, which the International Court of Justice says are could be called a genocide. They have gone as far as said that Israel's actions towards the Palestinians could constitute a genocide. South Africa, in the statements from their foreign ministers and in the statements from people who have who are tied to the government or who have even a historic role. The other day, I saw a video of the grandson of Nelson Mandela say, one of the reasons why we were able to get rid of that regime of apartheid that enslaved us and oppressed us is because of the international solidarity that the rest of the world showed toward us in our hour of need. And South Africa's strategies, the people who were fighting against apartheid had a component that was an armed struggle, also had a component that had a divestment component from international solidarity, had an international awareness campaign, had a diplomatic campaign, and all of these happened at the same time. And when people sometimes today talk about the armed struggle against the South African regime, people say, it was, we can think of it as a rebellion of the enslaved against their oppressors, and therefore it is justified. That was a component, but the other component was a huge campaign of disinvestment and political awareness that took place throughout the world, in Europe, Asia, other countries in Africa, and in the United States. College campuses in the United States were alive with protests and calls for their university to divest from South African businesses and institutions. And so South Africa now, when they see what is happening to our brothers and sisters, right? Other people who are suffering injustice today in Palestine, in Gaza, are saying, now that we have control of this government, now that we are the government of South Africa, we have access to the international institutions that were not there for us in our hour of need. And we're not going to let that happen. And so you see now South Africa being the most courageous and filing that case against the International Court of Justice, which is the highest court in the world. It's part of the United Nations, and starting that process of putting an end. Now, it's a very slow process. I mean, it's been, I think it was February of this year when the court had their ruling that said Israel is plausibly committing a genocide, and we're demanding that Israel stop. And of course, it hasn't stopped. And actually, what happened the next day after the court's ruling is that the United States withdrew its funding from the United Nations Agency for Refugees in Palestine, which was providing food and medicine for the people of Gaza. That was our nation's response.
That's another example of disinvestment or divestment, right? We're going the opposite direction.
Yes.
And
yes,
Antonio,
exactly.
I would like to remind also that one of the biggest supporters of the apartheid government of South Africa was Israel.
Yes. Yes. And one of the biggest supporters of the resistance of Black South Africans
Palestine.
was Yasser Arafat, the Palestinian Liberation Organization, the people of Palestine, because they recognize that. And I would like to mention something that is really important that has been kind of been lost in the memory hole sometimes. Jimmy Carter, our beloved former president, wrote a book in 2006, 2008, where he calls out what is occurring in Israel in relation to Palestinian people, apartheid. He wrote an actual book on it where he goes through and makes the case why that is a condition of apartheid. And that when you go to the encampments in the universities, the students are very clear on it. And it's, legally, it is an apartheid regime when it comes to the rights of Palestinian people or people who are living in those territories controlled by Israel. And so having that clarity, I should also say there's another component related to this where criticism of this condition, which is factually occurring, unfortunately, is being it's getting enshrined into law that a criticism of the Israeli government is being equated with anti-Semitism. There is a law that was a bill that was just passed in the House about a week ago that equates the two. Criticism of Zionism, or that idea of establishing a Jewish theocratic state in the territory that was formerly Palestine, that is now Israel and includes those occupied territories. They're saying that that's not legal. Our government representatives are saying that. And I think the bill is up for the Senate now, and it'll be a restriction on our First Amendment rights that we can even be able to express that idea. So,
Yoji, thoughts?
Oh, well, also it's important to understand also the history, the past history, why we came to this present moment. So people are sometimes, and I don't blame people to do that, because I think it's also naturally our memories doesn't hold long histories, but everything didn't start on October 7th. Of course, as Antonio said, I don't support that Hamas went into Israel and killed people that were in a rave and having fun. That if I would be around, I might be in that place too. But you need to understand why this is happening. So is this attack a form of self-defense of people that are being oppressed? If we go back to our ancestors, is a form of the slaves retaliating in the plantation. By the way, today is 14th of May. Yesterday is May 13. In Brazil is the day of the abolition of slavery, right?
Where?
Brazil was in Brazil.
In Brazil, okay.
Brazil was the last country to abolish slavery. And the second one, it's where you're born, where your family come from, Al, in Cuba.
Mm-hmm.
You know, very together, and this is why Cuba and Brazil has a very similar black cultures based on the Yoruba culture, because at that time they still have recent arrival of Yoruba slaves, right? So the whole issue of Israel and Palestine, it needs to be seen that Israel is the last bastion of colonialism, right? The Israel in itself, it's a colony of Europeans. In this case, with the Jewish flavor, not a Christian flavor, right? And you know that the Jews are in certain way, as you can say it, divided and being Ashkenazim and Sephardim, right? And in other degree, the Mizraim. So the Ashkenazim are the Jewish, the stereotypical Jewish that we think about it. That is the one that dominates the narrative in the world. Jewish, and in the Jewish world are the Jewish of blonde eyes, blonde hair and blue eyes. That they say they are this descendant of the Khazars. I don't know if you ever heard of the Khazars. So there was a Jewish kingdom around where is Azerbaijan throughout the Middle Ages. Ashkenazi means German in Hebrew. As Sepharad means Spain, right? And there is a distinguish. And this Mizrahi is the Jewish from the Maghreb, from Iraq, uh, and the Arab countries. So those other Jews of other flavors of darker hair, they are mistreated, particularly the Mizraim in Israel. They are discriminated. They suffer kind of a systemic racism that is implemented by the Ashkenazim. You
And
know,
so
so if you
is that the connection from, as you see it, a connection that we loosely describe either colonialism or imperial or supremacist, that's
yes,
Eurocentric? Is that at play?
is Eurocentric. Yes. So the Ashkenazim start moving into Israel around the disintegration, the Ottoman Empire, right? And that was in certain way uh, sponsored by the English government as a polite form of get rid of their Jews sent back. But Palestine at the time, in the beginning of the 20th century, that was inhabited by the Jews that get expelled from Spain, Portugal 500 years prior, and they are darker, right? So there was a huge influx of Ashkenazim Jews that displaced not only the Arabs but the Sepharad Jews. So if you notice in the news when they're showing about Gaza nowadays, yesterday, you're gonna see also a lot of black Israeli soldiers that are Ethiopian Jews from the Beta Israel, the House of Israel. And so there are Jews that don't have the same background as the European Jews, right? Certain books, certain events, like the Beta Israel, they don't know about Hanukkah because they went away before those events happened. So there are several experiences of being Jews that are dominated by the Jews that imposes the European experience into other Jews also and the Arabs that were in the land. And those Arabs that are not only Arab doesn't equate to be Muslim. So there are Arab Jews and there are Arab Christians. Palestinians, part of the Palestinians are Christians. Many of the holy places for Christians is in the uh, Palestinian territory. Bethlehem, it's in Palestine.
Mhm.
You know, so the thing is very complex. As I say earlier, doesn't start in the October 7th. It starts in certain way, or start to get accentuated with the Nakba, right? In 1948, the creation of the state of Israel, that was spearheaded in many ways by the Brazilian government. You mentioned Liberia being the last one that uh, supported, but it was spearheaded by a Brazilian diplomat called Oswaldo Aranha, right? That is praised in Israel. But the Nakba was a huge ethnic cleansing of the territory that causes this Palestinian diaspora. Here in South America, we are having right now the Copa Libertadores, right? That is a pan South American soccer tournament. One of the teams that represent in Chile, it's Palestino, right? It's a soccer team that created by the Palestinian community in Chile around uh, uh, 70 years ago. In
Mhm.
Brazil, there is large Palestinian population.
Mhm.
In Argentina, you find also Palestinians. In Brazil, the whole south border, in the literal sense of board, the south the border with Uruguay and the west border with Argentina and Paraguay. Uh, it's a lot of Palestinians where the Iguazu Falls, the three cities that conjoin around the Iguazu Falls that are Brazil, Paraguay, and Argentina. It is Palestinians basically. They are in there. So the CIA always looking into that area because of ISIS and this and that. Also, there's a large population of of Lebanese here
Mhm.
as well in other countries of South America. So we need to understand, and perhaps the media, meaning the mass media, should constantly give a history lesson how things is going on.
Mhm.
So also these people who live in the Middle Eastern, uh, through my contacts, I have many friends that are from that area. The memory of the Crusades are still alive. So in certain way, the arrival of those Ashkenazi Jews, it is a parallel of the Crusades. You know, people, because the Crusades, they invaded Palestine to take over uh, the historical places
Monument.
of
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
fables of
Let me
the fable book, the Bible. Pardon, sorry, you
let me
know.
swing it back to
Yeah.
Antonio for the last couple of minutes. So it leads me back to the question of the statement that Mike V made. Thank you, Mike V. And he said once again, Palestine becoming recognized by the U.S. as a legitimate state is the first step, but getting Palestine to become a member of the African Union will be a massive step with 55 African states backing them. What do you see as the path ahead, Antonio and Yoji? How do we recognize the legitimacy of all of the people in the region? And how do you see structuring a future that sustains life for everyone? Is that possible? Antonio, what do you think?
Uh, well, Al, I do think that it is possible. I think not only is it possible, but it's necessary.
Mm.
And it's necessary for them and it's necessary for us as we all try to figure out better ways of getting along with each other. The actual configuration, the actual solution of how these things go, it actually, in a way, it can't be up to us. It has to be up to the people who live there, to the Palestinians, to the Israelis, to the Muslims, Christians, Jewish people, all of the people who are there and who are living with it. One of the things that I think that needs to happen as well is to recognize and acknowledge the huge trauma that people are going through. Not just, like as Jody said, when in the days after the killing of George Floyd, he was concerned about his son's well-being with the shots and the bullets flying and those sounds. Imagine what it's like for children in Gaza today, and what it's like for Palestinian people who are living in that state of oppression.
No food, no medicine, and the threat of
For
bombs
generations.
Yeah. Listen, we're out of time, gentlemen. Thank you, brothers. Thank you so much. We invite people to stay connected with us, stay connected with the Conversation with Al McFarlane. And want to remind you that we'll be covering a lot of stuff having to do with the impact of the murder of George Floyd starting next Monday. We're calling it George Floyd Week. We'll have guests telling their stories. Some of the mothers of men who've been killed by police will be co-hosting with me. Some who are mothers to men or children killed by people of our own community. The question of violence and how it impacts the trauma. And then what solutions are we able to create? Well, join us next week. I'm Al McFarlane. This is The Conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.